We got sound. There we go. All right. So at this point, hopefully you've already watched the rubric overview. That basically explains how I'm going to grade your essays. So be sure you watch that video first if you haven't done so already. If you have, great, because now is the point where you're actually going to start writing the essay. Write the essay and then submit it for feedback from your peers. Now, one of the things that we'll go ahead and click on this first, submission form. Now, I should precurse all this by saying, excuse me, that I'm not going to be giving feedback on your rough draft. I'll give you, of course, a grade for your final draft, but for the rough draft, everybody always expects feedback, like some kind of in-depth feedback where you're only getting a completion grade for the rough draft. It's worth 10 points, and as long as you have the minimum page number, you have the minimum works cited page, the sources, and as long as you use all those sources within your paper, you're going to get 100% for the rough draft, which is 10 points. That's actually kind of a lot if you've been paying attention to the number of points that I give in this class. Anyways, why do I do that? Because whenever you actually submit something for real publication, I really try not to train hypothetical writers. Like, if I was a writer, then this is what I would do. I try and train people to be actual scholars within the field, so actual writers within the field. So I don't think of you guys as would-be or could-be writers. I think of you guys as apprentice writers. And so the reason I say that is because whenever you try and publish, or whenever you send something off, which, by the way, you don't have to have a master's or a PhD to publish something. If you have something that's worth publishing, then by all means. And these kinds of case studies are such pieces of information that people are interested in hearing. What is your observation and what it looked like? So anyways, whenever you submit that for publication, you're going to get one of, I suppose, 3 responses. You'll get, of course, the no, just the no thank you, which isn't good, but more than likely you'll get kind of a provisional, like a yes, we'd like to publish your paper in our journal, but we'd like you to make these changes. And the way that that goes down is you send your rough draft, or hopefully a more polished rough draft than what we have here. Anyways, you send it out there, and they'll have a bunch of people in the field, a bunch of experts in the field, read your paper and say that, either yes, we feel like they're on the right track based on, normal current research. But more than likely, well, if you're on the right track at all, because if you're not on the right track, they'll say no. But if you're at least on the right track and you've had proper, you've used proper etiquette, so to speak, you've written a good paper, they're going to come back with suggestions on ways to improve. Maybe something to add, something to take away, maybe something to clarify, maybe a clarification on sources, or maybe a different source that they suggest you read first before publishing, something like that. But anyways, they're going to send you back these changes, and that's really the only way that you're going to get feedback. You're not going to have, of course, a writing instructor or a psychology professor looking over your shoulder, kind of saying like, hey, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. Of course, you can always go to your instructors and ask them to look over those papers if you have one, but once you graduate, chances are you don't have an instructor like that kind of hanging around. And so this is how you get your feedback. And so I want to simulate that in giving you guys the kind of authentic training, where that's what you're going to do here. You're going to submit this, and basically your peers are those experts, right? They may not know much about your field, but they've been sitting through this class, and they should know a little bit about your theory as well. And so they should be able to read your observation and look at the theory and basically have a general understanding of how the two fit together, at least from the perspective that you're giving in the essay. So anyways, what do you do here? You'll submit your essay to the discussion forum. You can only cut and paste it. You can't really submit a file here for some reason. I don't know why, but anyways, when you click on here, I mean, for me, it actually does tell me that I can do an attachment, but I've seen in the past when students log in here, like I've seen them log in, this is missing. So if you have this, great, upload your paper, but chances are this little button here is not going to be. So if that's the case, then all I want you to do is cut and paste. So you'll go to your essay, you'll copy it, you'll paste it here, and then you'll hit post reply. Now when you do that, of course, everyone's going to be able to see it, and that's kind of the point, because after you post it, then in order to get 100% on this part of the essay, which, by the way, the essay here is a completion grade. I don't know if I said that already, but it's completion grade. As long as you have the minimum page number, the minimum sources, you're going to be get almost relatively 100, as long as you do this part as well. And what is this part? Well, now it's the time for you to go back and read 2 other people's essays. I want you to read 2 of their essays. and I want you to give them 5 pieces of constructive feedback. Now, what does that mean? Just think of constructive feedback to mean suggestions, because what I want you to do is go through and find 5 suggestions that you have for their paper, and then suggest that they change that part of the paper. The idea here is that you're suggesting improvements for their paper. So find places where you feel like they can improve. As a reader, you are justified to address anything, because if you're the reader, you are essentially the audience that they're going to be writing to, because this isn't something that you would just post in a newspaper. This is something you're going to post in a journal that psychology students or psychology scholars are going to be reading, and everyone in here is a psychology student right now, so everyone in here should have some degree of understanding what's being said, because we've all discussed it. So anyways, what does that look like? Give them 5 pieces of feedback at 250 words apiece. So you have 2 essays, right? 1, 2. On the one hand, I want you to read this person's essay, give them 5 pieces of feedback, and this should total 250 words. Now, the way that I suggest you achieve that is by giving them specific guidelines. If you suggest that they change a paragraph, explain how you would change the paragraph, and give them some guidance as to how that could go down. Also, maybe explain some justification. If you tell them to change a paragraph or move a paragraph, explain why. So there's kind of 3 total ideas there that you can explain in 250 words. Now remember, you're doing this twice. Once for 2 peers. All right, so 250 words apiece. That's why it says a total of 500 words. So your idea there, you give them a suggestion, and each time you give a suggestion, justify that suggestion, but then also give some examples of how you personally would go about achieving that suggestion, making that improvement. Once you do that, of course, log in at the end of the week and look at the suggestions you've been given, because that's how you're going to get your feedback for improvement on the final draft. Now, I'll also have you go back next week, and I'll give you kind of an extra piece to go back and revise, but that's going to be very minor. So next week in week 10, I'm going to give you kind of a surprise piece that I want you to add to your essay, but I do that on purpose. So don't freak out. That sounds really ominous and really difficult, but it's not that difficult. I'm basically going to ask you to add a paragraph at the end of your paper, and I'll explain all that next week. Don't worry about it right now. For right now, just look at your essay, look at the feedback, the suggestions, the 5 suggestions that you should have been given by your peers. And go back and look and see how you can achieve those suggestions. And if you even want to, you may not want to improve, or you should definitely want to improve. You may not want to implement the suggestions that person made, which is completely fine. But anyways, let me make sure I haven't missed anything. I will not be providing rough draft feedback, so I'm trying to get you guys to utilize your peers. Also, I gave you feedback in your self-reflection papers, in your 3 self-reflection papers, where I said, basically ask yourself how particular theory fits into your life at that point. So go back and look at those peer reviews papers, because I graded them in almost the exact same way. The feedback is going to be the exact feedback that I'm going to be, because I was looking for the exact same things. The only thing that differs a little bit between the self-reflection papers and this coming paper is the rubric, but essentially the other rubric that I used for your self-reflection papers, that was just kind of a watered down version of the one that I just gave you. That new rubric is basically just a more specific, more elaborate version of the rubric I've been using all semester. So basically the same rubric. So like I said, I'm going to be grading this new paper the exact same way I've been grading your other papers. So go back and look at the feedback that you received there. Anything that I said there, 100% is going to apply into this new paper. So just use those feedbacks as guidance. So anyways, that is all the guidance I have right now for the field study, rough draft. Make sure you submit that here. Once you submit, I'm going to show you what it's going to look like. The way that you post those peer reviews is underneath each person, you're going to have a reply button. So that's where you're going to come. Their whole essay will be right here. You'll be able to see it. And then down here, after you hit reply, then you're going to say basically in a numbered list, good work on your introduction, but I wasn't clear on your thesis. I'm not sure I saw one. And then you kind of elaborate. I suggest adding a thesis because that's going to be worth 20% of the grade. So that's me kind of giving the justification. In order to add this effectively, I would follow the SOAR acronym that Mike outlines in his videos. So basically, that's me giving the suggestion on how I would do that. And you can go a little bit more into depth, because remember, you are trying to achieve 250 words on each of your replies. So anyways, that's essentially what I would do. But even that right there is probably 100 words. Maybe not 100, maybe probably closer to 25 actually. 25 to 50, I don't know. I know I'm not a good judge of word numbers. Anyways, so one of the things I definitely suggest is going back and reviewing the video I did last week on the structure, because hopefully the structure, you did this assignment, hopefully, and if you did, then it gives you a roadmap for your essay, and then basically all you have to do is kind of go through here and elaborate on everything you've already kind of summarized for me. So anyways, that's what I have for this week. Again, if you have any questions, as always, email, text, phone call. I'm usually available, and if not, I get back to you pretty quickly, at least within 24 hours. I think I'm usually pretty good about that. But and again, if you don't hear reply in 24 hours, just send me another message. You're not bothering me by sending me a text message. You're sending me an email. So don't feel bad if you need to if you want to send me more than one. But anyways, have a good week, and I will see you guys in week 10.